You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
The 4x4 Podcast, episode 147. Whether you're going to start a trip to Tierra Del Fuego or simply hitting the forest roads in the Ozarks for the weekend, Artemis Overland Hardware has just what you need. Visit online at artemisoverland.com. That's ARTEMIS overland.com. Or visit their awesome showroom located in Springfield, Missouri.
You're listening to the 4x4 Podcast, the podcast all about four-wheeling, overlanding, off-road racing, and the outdoor lifestyle. We talk about news, tips and tricks, answer your questions, and interview big and little names in the off-roading world. So whether your rig is busted and you're in the shop wrenching on it, or you're on your way to the trail, join us and we'll keep you plugged in on topics to help you get away. Here are your hosts, Dan, Craig, and Rich.
Well, hello, fellas. I am Dan, host of the 4x4 Podcast here. And tonight, no interviews, so it is just the three of us. How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing great.
Craig, how are you?
A little whacked out from this week. I've been on vacation for a week. I'm on vacation for another week. And I had house problems.
Oh, well, that doesn't sound like the Jeep is fixed.
Not when you get a quote for $4,000.
$4,000?
$4,000 to fix something on my house, yes.
Oh, for the house. I was going to say, $4,000 to fix something on the YJ. You're starting from scratch? But we'll talk about that later. In the garage segment, we got a lot of stuff lined up for this episode. So I think we can go ahead and jump down to the news.
You're listening to a...
I'll have to edit that one out. Let me try again. All right, so I'm going to kick this one off first here. Big announcements from Ford. They have re-released the name Trimmer, which I think the Trimmer was that was their street truck, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was their F-150. It's kind of like their Skunk Works type truck.
Yeah, the prequel to the Lightning, I think. Yep. Okay, so anyways, it is no longer a street truck. The Ford has reused the name to take direct aim at the Ram Power Wagon. And this looks like a pretty good competition. So, Rich, I know you'd mentioned you got some thoughts on this as we were talking pre-recording. So what do you think? Is this going to be a direct competition?
For the Power Wagon, I don't think so. I mean, so the thing that the Trimmer has that the Power Wagon doesn't is it has a diesel option. That's really about it. And you can't get a diesel option in the Power Wagon because of the winch. So they cannot make a diesel fit in a Power Wagon because the intercooler goes or the radiator for the intercooler goes where the winch sits.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sorry excuse, though.
I think Ram is they're pretty dedicated to the winch. It's kind of it's the trademark, I think, for the Power Wagon. It's the only factory truck with an option for a winch that you can get from the factory.
That's true.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
But it's also got the electronic disconnect sway bar.
So that's the other thing that the Power Wagon has that the light is the Trimmer.
Trim. I know. I keep getting messed up too.
Head now. I want to call it the Lightning. Yeah. So the Power Wagon has a front locker and a rear locker. The Trimmer has a rear locker with a limited slip front. The Power Wagon has disconnecting front sway bar links. The Trimmer does not. The Power Wagon, I believe, has more skid plates. I think the Trimmer comes with one skid plate.
I think it's two. There's one for the gas tank, and there's one for the transmission, I believe.
It's either transmission or transfer case. There's no front skid plate on it.
Yeah.
So there's a few things. I mean, other than the diesel option, I think the Power Wagon is still the way to go. But I don't know. You got a lot of Ford fans out there.
Yeah, well, and I know this is definitely something that they need to have kind of in the Ford truck portfolio, because the Raptor is, everybody says it's great for running in the desert. It is awful for towing, just because of that soft suspension. Whereas this has got, a suspension that is probably more adequate for towing and then driving over some rough terrain. And I really like that it's just a package that you can get on whichever trim level you want for your F-250. Well,
I think you can do a 250 or you can do a 350, I believe. So, Yeah, I mean that. So while the Raptor is more of your dune truck, your Baja type truck, the trimmer has been geared more towards their, and people can't see me doing this, I'm doing air quotes, rock crawler type truck.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're using the same torsion limited slip differential in the front of both the Raptor and the F-150.
I don't know. It's a Dana limited slip on the trimmer.
Interesting. I do think it was interesting that they skipped on the winch. Like, I really feel like Ford could have stuffed a winch inside that bumper.
I do too. I mean, if you're really targeting the Power Wagon, then put a winch on it, and that's to me that is the no-brainer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're targeting it. I think they're trying to do their own niche. They're not trying to directly compete. Ford has found a niche just under the Power Wagon that they are looking to
I
fill.
disagree. I think
they had to have, or they wouldn't have spent all this money.
Yeah, I disagree. I think this is Ford's attempt to directly target the Power Wagon crowd.
If they're not targeting the Power Wagon as their direct competition, they are not paying attention, because the Power Wagon has been like, they've got the corner market or the market cornered on those off-road full-size trucks.
Yeah, so that's why I would say this isn't an off-roader. This is a trail hopper. This is the one you're going to tow your trailer with. You're going to go off-roading, sort of. You're not going to do, like hardcore rock crawling. Like I've seen the truck do before. It's just like this one, I think, is Ford went for a different niche than the Power Wagon. The Power Wagon I've seen off-road, hardcore wheeling. I think this one's more going to be for the trail hopper and the trail tower. That they don't need a winch. They just want to tow their toy hauler or their camper out to a more distant spot, and then that's the niche they're looking for.
Yeah, I will say one thing that the trimmer has that the Power Wagon doesn't, and this, depending on how you look at it, this is either a pro or a con, is the trimmer has the drive modes, and where you can enter in like the snow or the rocks or the sand. Well, I don't think the Power Wagon has that as an option. So, yeah,
it's funny. There's somebody on Facebook, I won't call him out, who has a Power Wagon, and he's, in the in crowd. He's got to get behind the wheels of this, and he said he's ready to jump ship from the Power Wagon to the trimmer. That being said, I'm still not believing it. Like, I just don't see them coming up to the same mark. This is going to, obviously, anybody who is a Ford fan but wants a more off-roadable truck straight from the factory, this is going to appeal to them. I don't think it's going to pull anybody away from them. Yeah.
No, the truck is going to sell. I mean, there's no doubt that in my mind that the truck is going to sell.
Yeah.
But
I do like the running boards. Those look like they are picked straight off the Raptor, so it's going to give some rocker protection. It's not just some plastic chintzy little thing that's going to fall apart and crumple the first time it touches a tree stump. That's a little more durable. And this is going to keep rocks off of that rocker panel, just like gravel getting spit up from the rocks. Like, that's one of the things I know for a fact. My Ram, I don't know about yours, mine is all chewed up from all the gravel roads that I've been doing.
Well, did you know why that is? Have you ever looked at full-size trucks from the side? So if you look at Ford and Chevys, the body sits up higher than the frame rails. Dodge, the rocker panels come all the way down so it hides the frame rails.
Yeah.
That's a design that they initially wanted when they started this generation, or the last generation of Ram.
Yeah.
So that's why they get beat up so bad, is because the body lines.
Yep, they got to cover up those little hidden cubbies in the back seat.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the GM heavy duties, like that frame rail hangs way down low.
Yeah.
You can see that on the side profile, but that's getting off topic. Anyways, it's out there. I don't think they've produced any, Ford hasn't released any numbers for what their engine package is going to be for this trimmer, or what it's going to cost to add this as a package.
Well, the article I'm reading says it'll be offered with a 7.3 liter V8 or the turbo diesel 6.7 Power Stroke.
Right. Not the 6.2 V8.
No, right. But as
So-
far as what you're saying, like the horsepower, and the
Yeah,
torque, and
it
everything,
should be pretty comparable.
right?
But I imagine there's going to be a light refresh, maybe squeeze out a little more horsepowers and a little more torques out of that. Just like I know when the Eco Diesel is coming out on the next version, and it's got a little bit more just to keep it relevant. But
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing the price difference and see how it actually goes. I'd love to try a test drive one. We will see. Will, next up, we can go ahead and talk about this one. The headline I put in our show notes is the poster child for global warming is going electric. And the poster child for global warming, in my mind, was the H2, because that one earned, like, I don't know, it was just what everybody hated so much, even though that's what the governor in California, that was his go-to vehicle.
Well, he had
a
I think
hybrid.
He had an H1. He had an H1,
Oh, that's
not
true.
an H2.
Yeah.
That's true. Either way, so the Hummer brand or model name has been shuttered over there at GM, and this article from Autoblog is saying that, and they're citing a Bloomberg report, which is a little more Business Insider stuff. They're talking about bringing the Hummer name back as an electric, because, as we've mentioned many times in the past, the electric truck idea is slowly gaining momentum with the Tesla truck that is still vaporware, the Rivian, which is out there but not in any consumer hands yet. So I think there's probably a lot of substance to at least the idea of the Hummer coming back as an electric. So I don't know if it's going to change the styling. I imagine it would have to, but I just don't know.
Yeah, they'd have to change the styling. I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty old styling as it is. I'm sure they would refresh it.
Yeah.
Well, they need to make it a little bit more aerodynamic, and then they'd also have to figure out new storage, because all the storage would be a battery that is in the Hummer now.
Well, I mean, they may just go the same way as the Rivian and have the frunk as well as the trunk.
Or the bottom chassis entirely the drivetrain.
I mean, everybody, it's pretty clear. The standard design for an electric vehicle, whether it's a truck or a car or whatever, is going to be the skateboard platform, where it's got all the batteries and the motors kind of as its independent thing, and then you mesh the body onto it. So what sits on top of that skateboard kind of becomes inconsequential. The Hummer was an off-road vehicle, so it'll be interesting to see what is out there for like adjustable suspension and stuff like that. But
Right. And GM has had such great success with electric vehicles. I'm sure they're going to do stellar with this. So
there's actually a guy that drives a Chevy Volt, and I see it parked in the parking lot at my office.
Yeah. You remember the EV1?
Oh, yeah.
That was the Chevy vehicle back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, I may be way off on this, but I think either the Bolt or the Volt has already been discontinued. So
I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that it's two vehicles that are 1 letter apart, not causing any confusion in the electric vehicle lineup over there at GM.
Right.
Yeah, it's just been a change. Pretty much, I think what our electric vehicles are going to go to is it's going to become a single chassis, and then you're going to be able to buy multiple bodies. So when you need a sports car, you drop the sports car body on it and go. And then when you come home, you hit the button. Oh, I need the van today. So you press the button, the van chassis drops on top of it.
It's the next logical step. That's the only possible thing that can happen.
It's a possible thing.
Or you could
now,
be
just
like,
remember, we need to, what do they say? I just came up with the idea, so we need to we're patenting it right now.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
It's like,
But,
do you remember the old smart cars where all the smart car owners would meet up and trade body panels so they could have different colors?
No, I don't remember that.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
Bottom line with the GM, with the Hummer Electric is I'll believe it when I see it. So
yeah. Well, next one, staying on the GM topic here, is the I looked for news articles and I didn't find any, but certainly Facebook, at least in my little bubble, is the Chevy Colorado's being bent in half, looking like a potato chip.
It's Facebook news, so it's reliable news. So.
That's totally reliable. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here. The article that I have seen cited the most times that popped up that Facebook really wanted me to see was that a Chevy Colorado with 10,000 miles was towing a 2,100-pound camp trailer on a dirt road and hit a bump. And the result was, if I were to categorize the angle of the bend, I'd say it's about a 10-degree bend, maybe?
Yeah, it feels pretty accurate, I think. Any bend more than 0 is a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes readily apparent when the body of the truck bed starts pulling away, and then you see that same line carry up through the camper that's mounted on the bed, gets peeled away from the cab a little bit farther. So, I don't know, maybe 10 degrees.
I've seen this article, and then there was a second article. The one you're referring to is a silver Chevy Colorado.
Yep.
I've also seen a black Chevy Colorado that has the exact same bent frame. It's the exact same picture, basically, where it's at that same angle.
Yeah. So there's a couple interesting.
That one,
go ahead.
I believe in that one, the trailer was a little more than 2,100. I think it was closer to like 3,700 pounds, maybe. But it was more than 2,100.
Which in either case is still below the towing rating of the truck. So it should be able to handle that.
Should be. But did you also notice the tongue weight?
The tongue weight was only 347 pounds.
Which it's typically 10% of your gross trailer weight, right?
Yeah.
Which would be 210 pounds.
So it's a little heavy on the tongue.
On the tongue, yeah.
When it says hit a bump, it doesn't really say, and there's like massive speculation. There's 45,000 comments on this of everybody saying should have bought a heavy duty truck or blah blah blah, whatever. A bunch of white noise in the comment section. Some of them kind of hilarious, others not so much. But this is really kind of called out as some hate on Chevy because they are not the GM investigator that looked at everything. I think the result is that they're not going to warranty this bent frame. Now, yeah,
that just forget that. People just decided, we ain't buying Colorados.
Yeah, and that's why there's so many comments there. But in either case, whether or not they're going to honor or not, like this is a PR problem more than anything else for Chevy.
Right. The question is it user error or is it a manufacturer error? Was this guy doing 45 miles an hour off road and then it hit I've seen the ranges from 3 inches to a 3-foot dip.
It's amazing how the difference between one little quotation mark.
Right. So, did he hit a huge bump in the road and that's what caused this, So
it doesn't matter whether it was a bump in the road. The vehicle says that it can tow this amount of weight. It should handle this amount of tongue weight, and you should be able to tow it with. It doesn't matter what size bump you hit. It shouldn't bend like that.
Yeah, so here's kind of my thought. Like, I intentionally have the cheap U-joints from AutoZone in my drive shafts and in the axle shafts because that's my fuse. If I get into something pretty gnarly and it's going to bind up and snap, I want it to be something that I can easily replace. In this case, there should probably be something in that towing linkage that snaps or bends before the truck frame because that's pretty catastrophic. You can probably drive that truck for a little ways, but at the end of the day, it's going to need a new frame if it doesn't get totaled out.
Right.
Well, it is totaled out. Once you bend a frame like that, the vehicle's totaled out.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to replace the frame under warranty, I don't know that it would be totaled.
I mean, if the insurance company would look at it, the insurance company will walk out and say, well, that needs a new frame. That's a total.
Yeah.
And it's a write-off. The insurance company buys the truck.
My dad has an awesome set of tools.
Well, so, I mean, I guess my point is that there's probably something. I've seen trailer hitches fail, like come off the frame, that cross member or something. But this is kind of the first time I've seen it. But apparently it's a pretty frequent thing based on everything else we were seeing here. And here's some other interesting things to it before we move on, is that it bent right at the same point that the shock mount.
Shock mount, yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely some big holes in there to access the nuts to attach the shocks and everything. So you've removed some material at a fulcrum in this setup. I don't know if maybe they bottomed out and really hammered on it.
Right. Well, to me, there's got to be some. Okay, Dan, how much can your Cherokee tow? What's the tow rating for it?
I think it's about 3,500 pounds.
Okay, so you're towing a 3,000 pound trailer, right?
Yep.
You're gonna do 45 miles an hour off road?
No.
Why not?
Because it's gonna it's gonna end up bad. I know that for a fact.
Exactly. I don't care if you're towing something, you cannot drive like you're not towing something.
Yeah.
So,
especially off road, you're gonna do on road. That's different. But if you're off road, you're not gonna,
Yeah.
Truthfully, if I'm off road and I'm driving on a road like that, I'm looking around, so I'm not going to be driving fast.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so based on some of the other pictures, it does have like the max coupler on it instead of a ball hitch. So it's just from what I've seen on those hitches, it has ended up in more catastrophic losses of trailers because there's nothing to stop it from flopping all the way over. So I'm sure this was kind of a wild ride. Right. I can't imagine they were actually going that fast. If they were, then I'm surprised they kept it on the trail at all. But
right, and I'm not sure there's one single contributing factor too. There's probably several contributing factors to this too. So,
well, yeah, I'd say where the holes are in the frame for the shocks, the speed he was going down the road, the bump, the trailer, it was a bad design flaw. There's no way around it. If we've already had two stories, and with
there's actually three.
Three? Okay.
Yeah.
I've only seen two.
That's just the Chevy Colorado. That's just the Chevy Colorado. Like I've seen here in the comments that a lot of the Ford Rangers coming out of Australia, it's been on the market there for a lot longer, and they're seeing the same thing. So the moral of the story, I think, is that as vehicles try to get lighter to become more economical, that weight savings is coming from somewhere. And in this case, it looks like maybe the frame material has been thinned out and maybe should be added back in some critical portions of the frame just to help add some strength back to some critical areas. And also, just don't drive off.
Raptor.
Yeah,
the Raptor had been there's been some reason with frames lately. I mean, I know the Raptor did it. I've seen a Raptor folded in half.
Yeah,
seen a picture of that. I haven't seen the Rangers yet, and now the Colorado folded in half. A couple of Toyotas I've seen folded in half. Who's designing these damn frames?
Yeah.
Bottom line, what's going to happen is shortly on our website, you will be able to buy the Chevy Colorado frame gusset kit for a very reasonable price.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a thing.
I'm sure you'll be able to get it through AV real quick because they make a nice off-road kit as it is.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, just don't drive like an idiot. That probably is going to add a lot too.
Allegedly.
Yeah, so I'm told.
We're going to put we'll definitely put allegedly in there.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next article. And I know since there's 45,000 comments on this, somebody in the 4x4 podcast audience probably has some thoughts on this because I know there's been a lot of trailer talk. Like I have been known to drive probably faster than I should, and I have noticed on this last road trip that I have, and we'll talk about it. Well, I guess we can talk about it now. The 3,500-pound axle in my trailer is bent a little bit, which indicates I've probably launched it into some potholes faster than it should have. And the tongue has a light bend. It's way less than this 10-degree bend. and you kind of got to sit there and look at it for a minute before you can tell. But this is a good opportunity to go ahead and upgrade the tongue from the Harbor Freight trailer frame. I had reinforced it anyways with like a 2-inch squared tubing that runs the entire length of the trailer. But one of the things that I had realized after the fact is that I wished I had made it a larger diameter tubing so I could actually put a receiver hitch into it to recover the whole thing from the back. So when I go through and replace that bent tube in the tongue section, I'm definitely going to reinforce that. The rest of it is still great, and I think when I replace the axle, I'm going to go ahead and replace it with one that has trailer brakes built in. But there's a lot of upgrades coming for that trailer just over time. I've got a lot of stuff going on. We'll talk about that more when we get to the in the garage segment. But speaking of upgrades and camping, we have an article here from the Auto Blog titled "The 24 Essentials to Make Car Camping Even More Fun." And my commentary is because most of the overlanding that people do anymore is really just car camping. Let's be real.
Absolutely. That's what I do. I'm a car camper. I'm not an overlander.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you're using your vehicle to go camping. So there's a bunch of things on this list. And, Rich, I'll hand it over to you. See if there's anything on this list that you think fits or maybe doesn't, or would you add?
Well, there's a little bit of both. I think the one that is on here that I do like that I think a lot of people miss out is a campfire mitt. I have a campfire mitt also, but recently, and they show a picture of basically it's like a glove. So we have this thing in our kitchen called the UV glove. It's basically a Nomex type glove that we use for handling hot kitchen utensils, I guess. But it's smaller than the big leather campfire gloves I use. So I think I might actually replace my campfire mitts with one of those UV gloves.
Interesting. Yeah, I use a pair of welding gloves.
Yeah.
But for sure, when you're picking up something super hot, you're going to feel it through there in pretty quick time.
Yeah, especially if you have a cast iron pot and a cast iron handle, that's going to get hot real quick.
Yeah, that's been sitting in the fire.
Right. So the ones that I think are kind of the not necessarily required ones are like the insulated growlers. I don't really have a use for that.
Yeah. So I use a double wall coffee cup. I think it's maybe a Hydro Flask one. And one of the things that's also on this list is the AeroPress. The funny thing is the coffee cup top is too narrow just to put the AeroPress right on, but it comes with like a funnel type thing that fits in. Mm-hmm. I had to shave it down just a little bit to make it fit nice and snugly, so I don't, while I'm pushing the coffee through the press, I don't, shoot the thing out from under me. I like the one that's underneath the AeroPress is instant coffee. Oh, stop it!
If I got the AeroPress, why would I bring instant coffee?
Well, that's under also if you have. What about the freeze-dried food packets? What do you guys think of those?
I do pack those.
Yeah, I do keep those as well.
That's all I have time for. You know, they're quick, they're easy. A lot of them taste good.
Yeah.
Which ones? Because every one I've ever had, they suck.
Well,
they taste just bland. It's
you got to lower your expectations.
See, sorry, you're just not hungry enough.
You've seen the size of me. There's no expectations of not food.
You haven't eaten enough MREs to.
Yeah, I'd say you're just not hungry enough.
That's the difference between being hungry enough but then the problem is just eating one. They know you get to the third one, you're still, oh man, this is yucky.
Yeah.
But I'm hungry.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I've got those Mountain House meals that sit in the trailer because, they're pretty safe. They're not going to just go bad too easily, especially if they sit in there for a year. It's not bad. But if we roll into camp and there's crappy weather or we don't just want to, get to bed as fast as we can, but we're starving, like you said, it makes a quick meal. There's a lot of different brands out there, not just Mountain House. Some of them use less like sodium.
Like Alpine Air and
yeah. I haven't had a lot of experience with them. Backpacker's Kitchen, they've got a couple good ones. Not all of them are great.
I think the one thing that is missing from this list is I didn't see a lot of like plates or silverware or kitchen utensils. I would definitely add anything from GSI.
Yeah.
You know, they're cheap. They're really inexpensive. They're well made. They're lightweight, but almost all of their kitchen products are worthy of the small amount of change you're paying out for them.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's funny because this whole article is a mix between what somebody used to use for backpacking and is now thrown in the back of a vehicle, and something that's going to last for longer, like the cast iron pan, stuff like that. I am surprised, though.
Yeah, but if you do, Rich was just talking about utensils and plates and stuff. There's still nothing wrong with going to the grocery store, grabbing a set of plastic forks, plastic spoons, plastic knives, and some paper plates. Is just as cheap, and and you don't have to clean them.
Well, I'm not even sure why you would buy them. You just go to a fast food place. They're sitting out there for everybody to take. They're free, free for charge.
You got all those condiments.
Yeah, you got to go there anyway to pick up your ketchup packets. So
that's exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Go ahead and get your spork and your knife, and hey, it comes with a napkin. You know, all depends on where you go. It gets a little thing of sauce with it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're already prepackaged too.
Those are good. So it says collapsible dog bowl on here. I know I like the collapsible like wash bins too. That's one of the things that I've looked for and haven't found some good price ones. So instead, I've got just the old white plastic wash basins, and they nest in each other, so I can fit 3 of them in there. So, I guess we haven't talked about it in a long time, is just cleaning up around camp. So here's a question. How, Rich, because I know you've been out there camping recently, how do you wash dishes at camp? You got a system for it, or just lick it clean and hope it's good to go next time?
I eat everything on my plate.
Give it a wipe with a towel.
I usually, you're good to go. I can use one of those Lysol disinfectant wipes. Come on.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm not an animal. No, I usually just rinse it off. I mean, it doesn't take much water to rinse a plate off, I mean, you just...
Yeah, so what I've always done and what I've taught my kids is the 3 wash bin rule. So the first step is obviously scrape everything off as good as you can before you dunk it in the water. Then you've got the gross water where you actually dunk it in there, rinse off all the big stuff. Then the second wash bin is the soapy water, and you want it as hot as you can stand to keep your hands in there. And then the hot water rinse at the end. So you got the 3 bins and then a drying station, drying child, whatever. That's their job. That's an important job, though, because usually when it gets to the end in the drying process, inevitably it's dropped on the ground and has to go through the entire process again.
Yeah. Well, the easiest way is if you're going solo, you just eat whatever you eat out of whatever you cooked it in. So
yeah. So that's funny.
That works too.
I've done that many times on my Skottle. If I'm just reheating something for myself, it goes from Skottle to fork to mouth, and then I clean the Skottle when I'm done. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. I was surprised that the Skottle did not end up here. I thought for sure like the Skottle has reached the mainstream consciousness, as many as I see out there from Tembo Tusk, but apparently not. Maybe somebody should write in Autoblog and correct their major oversight.
I was surprised too, because it's basically just a ton of name brand stuff. It's all MSR and Yeti, Fiskars, Gerber. It's almost like a big advertisement.
Yeah.
It was probably written for advertisement, pretty much.
I've probably fallen into that trap
some
here.
of this stuff, some of the stuff, is kind of like, duh kind of stuff, just looking through it. I mean, if you're car camping, there's McDonald's, there's Burger King, there's...
Yeah, that's not camping food. That's road trip food. And it'll definitely give you the bubble guts.
It becomes camping food when you reheat it on your...
Oh.
It becomes camping food when you reheat it on your Skottle, though.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You ever had reheated Taco Bell on a Skottle?
That sounds like a gut bomb waiting to happen. Okay.
Taco Bell never lasts that long. So.
Moving on to the next segment. Speaking of junkyards.
Taco Bell. Let's put it that way.
So our next one, this is a segment we're going to try and bringing back to life our off-roading 101. And this is an article from fourwheeler.com, home of the awesome four-wheeler magazine. And this is how to identify popular junkyard axles. So, Craig, have you replaced an axle in your YJ or any of the other vehicles? Is that something that you've endeavored?
No, I was going to, but then I was able to just get the gears and stuff to shove in the axles I already had. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fair to say that a lot of the vehicles that find themselves off-road have adequate axles to begin with, but there's some great ones out there if you're going to upgrade the axles that you can pull out of a heavier duty vehicle, and there's tons of great ones. Like, for instance, my Cherokee started out with the sad Dana 35. I believe that's what was in there when it rolled off the factory.
Hey, I still got that in there, Mike.
Well, yeah, but your Jeep doesn't run, so the axle's not the problem. Anyway, so then the Jeep has been upgraded to the Dana 44, which is definitely a major upgrade over the 35. But when I shredded, 3 sets of ring gears, probably because of the aggressive driving that I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and I've upgraded now to the Ford 8.8. Now, knowing where all these different axles come from and the configurations and which ones are going to be the easiest swap right in. Like, I would have loved to have a Ford 9-inch, but that axle is too wide to fit into the Cherokee. Whereas the 8.8 is like a 1-inch total width difference than the Dana 44 that was in there to begin with. Anyways, this guide from fourwheeler.com kind of lays out the specs and pictures so you kind of know what to look for. And it lays out what's good about them and what's bad about them. So, for instance, let's see here. We talked about the Dana 44. The good are these are very popular axles for a reason. They are strong and versatile, having been used in many applications. Numerous upgrades are available thanks to long history. They've been made in many different configurations. Dana 44 is a viable swap candidate for many off-roaders. Here's the bad. The early axles had coarse 10 and 19 spline axle shafts. That is awful. Let's see, where else? There were also undesirable closed knuckle Dana 44 axles out there in the early 70s. There's low pinion and high pinion front 44s, which can cause weakness in the actual housing. Let's see. Very little in common with earlier versions. So the JL Dana 44s are completely different than other JK 44s and things like that. So not all Dana 44s are created equal. The Dana 60, super popular one. It's talked about in here. Also the Dana 70s, Dana 80s.
I like the description on the Dana 35.
Oh, I skipped right past that one. Nobody wants that.
So Dana 35, the good, just about nothing. We're including this axle so you know what to stay away from. And the bad, weak C-clip axles, weak axle tubes, weak gussets, weak carrier, and pretty much everything else.
Yeah. If you have a Dana 35, let me just tell you, do not invest a single cent into it. Just swap it out with something else.
They tell me.
Yeah.
Now they tell me.
Don't spend money on that thing. So here we are jumping down to the Ford 8.8. Let's see. One of the most widely produced axles Ford ever made, the 8.8 is an excellent choice for any mild or moderate trail vehicle. They're extremely plentiful and cheap in junkyards while being well supported in terms of gear ratios, differentials, and axle shaft upgrades. The bad are axles are retained by C-clips, enabling a tire and wheel to separate from the vehicle in the event of a broken axle shaft. That's true. That's true of a lot of different ones. But what they don't say on here is that you can get a C-clip eliminator kit to fix that problem. Let's see. A few truck 8.8s came from 28 spline axles, so buyer beware. One could confuse an 8.8 with the lighter duty Ford 7.5, as the cover is roughly the same shape as an 8.8, but 1.25 inches narrower. So that's even more narrow. Let's see. Oh, here's the notes. Here's where it gets good. The Ford 8.8 and an Explorer is pretty much the go-to budget axle swap of choice to replace the Dana 35 in several Jeep applications. They are within 2 inches of stock widths of the XJs, TJs, and ZJs and have the same 5-on, 4.5 bolt pattern. Even though the axles are held together with C-clips, we found axle shaft failures are exceedingly rare even with stock shafts. If that's a concern, oh, there it is. C-clip eliminator kits are available. So, and just the overall, the strength difference between the 8.8 and the 9-inch is still significant, even though we're talking, like a quarter of an inch ring gear size. But the 9-inch is talked about in there a lot. Anyways, this is a great article just to save as a resource. So we'll have this in the show notes for this episode, 147. So go to the 4x4podcast.com/147, and we will have a link to this article here on the Four Wheeler Network, so you don't have to go searching the entire internet to find it. Let's see. All right, so now we're going to talk the product spotlight. And we'll try to talk about some of these because, we talk about bunch of truck stuff and all these things, but we want to feature some specific products. And we've got 2 selected here. This is a new one that has just come out. We found it highlighted over on racedesert.com. And we've talked about dual color LED light bars before, but this one has 2 different beam patterns for the 2 different things. Let's see. The top bar is the top section of it is the white color, which has a spot beam that projects way out, and then the bottom row is more of a flood pattern with amber lights to help cut through rain, snow, fog, dust, things like that. And what I do think is funny is the names that they give for these beam patterns from Vision X. Did you see that? The vector reflector technology and the photon light core technology for the amber. I mean, is it not shining light? It's shooting photons out? Come on. Anyways, these definitely look pretty good. Hopefully I don't know. So it seems to me the trend is going away from the light bars and back to the round and rectangle lights. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I was just looking at the article. I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between amber and race amber.
Well, that's a good question. That one I don't know.
It doesn't even mention it, really.
Yeah, I know just using amber is huge. That makes a huge difference. And as we scroll down through the article here, it just kind of talks about some of the things that make Vision X awesome as they are, and the mounting hardware is huge. The fact that it has 2 bolts on each side helps you set the angle that you want your light mounted at, and it's not going to walk around. I haven't broken down and got a mount that I really like for the light bar on my Jeep. And for sure, as I was bombing around the desert yesterday, that the light bar started to sag, and if I had clicked it on, it would have been pointing not on the hood at the actual windshield wipers. It's right there, pointing straight down. It's pretty bad. I need to go out and fix that up. But I do like that. I was looking through some of their other products. They actually do have a white, not just a amber. Then they have like you said, the racing amber. You know what? The racing amber is lighter.
It's brighter.
Yeah, it's a lighter looking, so it's probably brighter. And then a white. So they have a clear too.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be driving in the desert and experience some dust, you want a good amber light.
Yeah, basically I found there's a separate model. They call it the Shocker Race model that utilizes a special LED chip configuration which emits a maximum amber brightness. So, yeah, it's brighter.
Okay.
Yeah, they have it. Yeah.
Anyways, these are from Vision X, which makes, they've been making great lights for decades at this. Next up in our product spotlight section here, and this is from our sponsor, Artemis Overland Hardware. And this I actually saw when I was in the Ironman 4x4 store down in Australia when I visited a couple years ago. This is a rechargeable camp shower. And you basically charge up the batteries, drop the pump portion into a water can or a bin or whatever water source, and you click it on, and it pumps the water straight out. So there's no heating element in it. But if you've spent all day cruising around the desert and you don't necessarily want a hot shower, you just want a shower to cool you off, and get that dust off of you. So this one rings in at $65, but it is well worth it. The fact that it's a rechargeable battery, and it's got the suction cup mount for the shower head holder thing, so you can slap it to the side of a vehicle, either the windshield or whatever, or not the windshield, that probably wouldn't work so well, but the side windows.
You never know.
Yeah, that's an interesting shower configuration.
If you're going to lay on your hood and just have the water run over you and just relax.
Yeah, back to the Taco Bell discussion. That's not something I want to see. That is awful. But it does come with a carry bag. So
if you, instead of using the bin, if you were some of those like solar showers, have the wide opening top, and man, you could drop that pump inside one of those solar. Yeah, you'd have a warm shower.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, and
this gives you figure out something that, because that looks like wherever the pump sucks the water in, you'd need to take the solar shower and plug it straight into that and make something that would go between the two.
Yeah,
I just open the wide mouth portion of that solar shower, whichever one you're using. Just drop the pump right inside.
Yep, that would probably work great.
Yeah.
So it's great to see some of that Australian stuff that's been, being used for so long, now kind of finally making it to the market over here in the United States, thanks to companies like Ironman 4x4 America and linking up with Artemis Overland Hardware. Speaking of Artemis Overland Hardware, I just want to go ahead and just say thanks to them for all their support. We live in a strange time where so many of us want to shop online for equipment designed to get us outside. I get it. Shopping from the comfort of our couch at any time is very appealing. But so much of the equipment that we use for overland travel is really expensive, and it would be nice to see it up close and explore it a bit before spending your hard-earned money. Artemis Overland Hardware is located in Springfield, Missouri, and you can visit them in person. You can see all that equipment in person, pick it up there, and head straight out for an adventure right from their shop. Artemis Overland Hardware only stocks the best equipment. Anything you pick up is going to stand up to the harsh environments that you'll be subjecting them to. At ArtemisOverland.com, you'll find a wide selection of rooftop tents and ground tents from companies like Oztent, 230, and Eezi Awn. You can outfit your camp kitchen with a SnoMaster Fridge, a Tembo Tusk Skottle, or a stove from Kovea or Front Runner. Artemis Overland Hardware has a large selection of camp furniture as well as roof racks from a wide range of vehicles. Recovery gear, lights, solar power, winches, dual battery systems, action tracks, GPS units, and much, much more can all be found at ArtemisOverland.com or the brick and mortar store there in Springfield, Missouri. Artemis Overland Hardware is also one of the very few approved Goose Gear installers and Ironman 4x4 dealers located in the central United States. Whether you're going to start a trip to Tierra Del Fuego or simply hitting the forest roads in the Ozarks for the weekend, Artemis Overland Hardware has just what you need. Visit them online at ArtemisOverland.com. That's ARTEMIS Overland.com, or see their awesome showroom located in Springfield, Missouri. Okay, so now we've got our feedback and iTunes reviews. And first we got a kind of a lengthy message here from Mark, who's written in before. And this is actually...
I appreciate.
I love seeing messages, and I personally enjoy the back and forth dialogue that we get on email. So thanks, Mark. And let's see. I will try to get through this as quickly as I can. He says, Dan and the rest. Back a few episodes ago, a listener asked about overlanding in a Subaru. Since then, that piqued my interest. My wife drives a 2016 Outback, while I drive a 2014 JKU. I feel that she has much more usable space in the back of her car as I in my Jeep. She also gets twice the gas mileage that I do. I purchased the Jeep mainly to drive forest roads and ranch roads for camping and exploring with only a little wheeling. In the last year, I have not had to engage four-wheel drive more than once for a mud hole and once for a sandy section. I am seriously thinking of trading my Jeep for a Subaru. While the Jeep may be way more capable, I don't use a fraction of its capabilities, and I am paying a huge gas penalty. I want to do some longer, here he says, multi-week overlanding trips where fuel cost will be a big factor and true off-road capabilities are not. I attended the Overland Expo this year and have for the past 7 or 8 years. I've been an instructor for 5 of those years. Yes, the show has grown. However, I think it has also shifted its focus. And I think we kind of mentioned this before. It has become much more of an outdoor adventure show and less overlanding. A couple of examples, the Sherp, which we talked about, the Yamaha side-by-sides, and a river running supply company are all at the show. Also, many of the products on display are for heavy four-wheeling and not for overlanding. At the show, you did meet Blackfire, which we've mentioned on the show before. Heard about them on the podcast. Since the show, I did purchase their multi-tool. Also stopped by LT Wright Knives and mentioned the podcast. The most interesting product I saw was the Lifesaver Water Purifier. Not just a filter, but actually purifies the water. The only other product that does that I've seen is MSR device for more than $200. This product was $100. Lifesaver is a UK-based company that works with Oxfam to provide safe water to developing countries. I was also looking at the wide selection of vans on display, and of course the Rivian. Sorry, I'm going to save my commentary till the end. Let's see. Long enough, stop there. Let's see. So I had responded, and he actually answered back with a couple other bits of information as we were talking about how to set things up. Mark uses a ground tent. Climbing up a ladder does not work for him, I think, given the age. Let's see. Ground tent is great if you're going to stay in one place for a few days, but it takes too long to set up and take down. When you and Rich talked about swags, I looked into them, but I don't like sleeping on the ground. I did see the Aussie YouTube channel from drifta.com.au and OzTent Bunker. Looks very interesting, small, easy to set up. Cabela's has a version for about half of the OzTent. I think he's talking about price. The OzTent RV series has a lot to offer. What I think I'll end up with is the 270-degree awning with sidewalls and a bunker-style cot, which I think is just the shorter version. As most of my driving is on the Southwest, snow and cold is not a huge issue. Let's see. Now we've talked about food a little bit. So Mark says he's a minimalist, cheap Walmart propane grill and burgers, brats, and an occasional chicken breast, cold sandwiches, cheese, fruit, and homemade trail mix round out the camp food. I do try to stop at local restaurants to get a local flavor. Currently have an ice chest, but a fridge freezer is in the future. I was set on Dometic, but after looking at the Artemis Overland Hardware site, SnoMaster is now a contender. They have a low-profile unit that would be nice in a Subaru. I know you are a fan of cast iron, but at home, let's see. I know you're a fan of cast iron. I'm at home on the trail. I don't spend a lot of time cooking and, more importantly, cleaning. A simple burger means no pots, pans, and mini plates and silverware, kind of like what we talked about. Looked at the Skottle, but I don't see myself using one that much. Speaking about Artemis Overland Hardware, I like the idea of seeing before buying. I have a trip to the Southeast planned around Christmas and plan on driving through Springfield to check them out. Another sponsor gets results from the podcast. So that's good to hear. Thanks, Mark, for those. Okay, so now let's unpack this and add a little commentary. Craig, anything in there really jump out to you?
Well, I think it's great. He's realizing that he has more than he needs, and he's trying to adjust. If he doesn't want to do a rooftop tent, I have come across actually on Amazon is a tent that hooks up inside a pop-up. A 10x10 pop-up. And you
like an Eezi Awn thing.
Inside. Huh?
Like an Eezi Up thing? Just like those...
Yeah, the Eezi Up.
Yeah.
The Eezi Up pop-ups, okay? It actually hooks up inside that. So you put the pop-up, you put that up, and it's a full tent. 10x10 or 12x12, I forget what it is. I think it's a 10x10. I'm saving up my money, and I'm going to buy a 10x12 pop-up, and then I'm going to put that tent in on one side, and then I have an overhang for my cooking and all of it, and so I don't sleep on the ground either, and then I'm going to do a cot.
Okay. Let's see. There was another article one of our listeners actually wrote. While I look for that, Rich, you want to mention anything in there?
Well, this is the part where Rich goes off about Subarus again.
We'll just save that one. I'll hit the button on the soundboard here. We'll just cue it up.
Yeah. No, Subarus are a great option. And, the vast majority of people that do overland travel don't use their vehicles to their fullest extent, and Subarus will get to where most of them are going. Part of overland travel is doing your research. You got to know where you're going. You got to know what the conditions are. You got to know what the weather's like. So if you've had a ton of rain and stuff like that, your road may not be passable. You have to find a different source. It's no different from anything else. You just have to know your vehicle's limitations. Yeah, I think a Subaru is a great option.
Yeah. So, okay, I found it. If you go to familyoffthemap.com, and again, I will have links to this in our show notes. So you don't have to remember it. But this is an article that kind of rounds out 5 different family tents for any budget, and it ranges from $100 to $10,000. Now that $10,000 is a little misleading because it's actually like an AT habitat, so it's replacing what goes on a truck. So that's kind of different. But there's a couple that really jump out, and we've talked about them on the show before. Is the Kodiak Canvas Bowflex or Flex Bow. Bowflex is something completely different. The Flex Bow tent, it's a really rugged tent made of canvas. It's kind of a cabin-sized tent. Now it is a ground tent, but it goes up pretty quick. It's really waterproof because of that heavy-duty canvas, and you can easily fit a cot in there. That's one that I've heard many, many great things about. And one that really jumps out to me is the Shift Pod. Have you seen these? It's like, it reminds me of an ice fishing tent.
Constantly.
Oh, yeah? So the Shift Pod, it's just like I said, like an ice fishing tent where you just kind of pull on the sides and the thing pops out, except this actually has a floor inside of it, which I think may be able to be removed, which makes it super appealing to me because I kind of like the idea of something that I could use as a ice fishing tent or a camping tent. It does look a little space future, like it belongs maybe on the surface of the moon. But I know for a fact that those would work well as a good tent. I don't know how well it would work in the summertime. It is on the expensive side. This one, based on what they're saying here in the website, is $1,500. That's an expensive tent.
They're supposed to, that silver material, it's supposed to be pretty reflective and pretty insulated. So they say they work pretty well in the summertime.
Yeah, I know. I like having some ventilation in the summertime, though. So if you've got all that
they don't
shiny
have huge
foil,
windows.
It's like a little portal window, which probably doesn't move a lot of air through. But that's one definitely worth looking out because I know those things set up super fast. Let's see, less than 2 minutes to set up and 5 minutes to pack down. But they don't pack down super tight. So you're going to be stuffing that on a roof rack almost for sure to make that fit. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And also, I really like the fact that the things that we're mentioning are showing up in somebody's consciousness. And, that's really kind of the goal here, is that we want to highlight the stuff that we think is going to work well and help inspire and educate you to get outside and have an adventure of some sort. Let's see. We've got a couple new reviews from iTunes. This is, 5 stars. Great podcast. Glad to see the program dedicated to my biggest hobby, from Stumper92. Also have 5 stars. Just normal dudes talking about vehicles, wheeling, whatever else fits in that subject, from Mark88. Another one, 5 stars. This is a great podcast. Real people talking about real wheeling and adventure. Not so polished, but not so polished that it sounds fake, if you know what I mean. Good stuff. Let's see, and another 5 stars. Love the show. Very informative and fun. Keep up the great work. From Al. I'm not going to butcher your last name. So, thank you for all those reviews there. And if you heard your name mentioned or your review read, just shoot us an email, the 4x4podcast@yahoo.com, and I will send out some stickers if I haven't already. All right, in the garage. So, Craig, you mentioned house repairs coming before Jeep repairs. Is it anything interesting?
Yeah. Well, I went into the bathroom and I was going to take a shower, and I stepped in water. Thing is there was no water on yet. So I looked, found where the water was coming from under my wife's sink, and it was a $12 little valve. It was broke off. So I went outside to shut off the main water to the house. And when I did that, the main water valve broke off in my hand and started spewing water all over the place. So I had to find the street main and shut that off, and then have a plumber come out. And they quoted me $3,800 to have it fixed.
Oh, ouch. It seems to me that the universe is against your Jeep ever running again.
It's killing me. But, yeah.
Well, I feel bad now because I've got tons of great off-roading right outside my back doorstep or front doorstep of the gated community that I live in. And I get to have all kinds of cool adventures.
Craig, have you ever considered selling your Jeep and buying a Subaru?
I've heard that may be a good idea. Where did I hear that?
Since I'm hoping to do a little bit more rock crawling than actual just, trail running. I'm going to have to go probably buy another Jeep.
At this point, that may be a better idea. Just keep the YJ around as a rolling spares bucket.
No, I'm not buying the same year Jeep. I'm going to buy something brand new. If I buy something, I'm going to buy a brand new Jeep. I had a plan on buying myself a brand new Gladiator for my birthday, but that went out the window.
Yeah. Well, hold on to that because we've actually
wait till next year anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it was going to be a 2020.
Yeah. Well, I mean that doesn't technically count as next year. That's the current one, but hold on to that because we've got some folks that listen to the podcast and are actually. I would put them into the category of Gladiator experts. We didn't get a message in on time, but I know that we've got a message coming regarding specifically buying a Jeep Gladiator. So that'll come up in the next show.
Good.
But all right.
Oh, that reminds me of a review you sent. On our message about the. I made a mistake about the diesel motor, and now I went back and I researched what I did wrong. The problem was I was looking to buy a Jeep, and when I was looking on one of the Jeep pages, one of the dealerships in the area actually had it posted as a 4-cylinder diesel. So when I saw that, then I always linked in my mind on the page or on the website of Jeep that the 4-cylinder turbo was a diesel, not a gas motor. And we got called out. I got called out on that. I made a mistake, and I'm clarifying where I screwed up.
Yeah.
So I am completely wrong. The 4-cylinder Jeep motor, I forget what it is right now. I don't have it.
It's 2-liter, 4-cylinder, dual overhead cam, DI, which I can see how it could be confusing. It is direct injection turbo with e-torque engine. So I could see how that would be confusing, but it is definitely a gas. It's a short. So
when I was looking at the dealership, it said after the description of the motor, it said diesel.
Well, believe it or not,
that's where I've gotten my confusion. So right now, I guess there is not the 4-cylinder diesel. So I'm glad I got that clarified to get that out.
I had somehow forgotten to put that on the show notes, but I did want to mention the fact that I was right. That's the important thing here. I was
you were right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay.
It made no sense for me to have two separate diesels for the same, pretty much the same vehicle.
That's all right.
All right.
All right, Rich. I know you've been on an adventure.
Make mistakes.
Yeah. Between the last time we talked, you took off in a direction that I wasn't anticipating. I didn't think you were going to be heading north.
I didn't see it either, but that's where we ended up going. The kids were down in Costa Rica, so my wife and I took the opportunity to head off do a little vacation, just the two of us. So we went up to Michigan, kind of explored the east side of Lake Michigan, and then we actually pretty much did a complete loop around that lake. So headed up to the Upper Peninsula, did some a little bit light off-roading up there, some camping, and then came back down through Wisconsin. So, it wasn't a whole lot of off-roading, but it was enough to get some dirt on the tires.
Yeah. So the last time you went camping in the truck, you were sleeping in the back in the bench.
Yes.
I can't imagine that fits two people well. So what was the camping arrangement this time?
We just took the ground tent.
Okay.
Or tent. We only took one tent. We didn't sleep in our own separate tents. We're not.
You're not in the separate bedroom phase of old
We had a few
person life?
conversations. We had a few conversations I thought was going to result in us sleeping in separate tents, but
Yeah.
No, her sleeping in the truck, you sleeping in the tent.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was a nice trip. I've never really looked at Michigan as being a vacation destination, but we had a good time. There's a lot of nice stuff to see up there, nice stuff to do.
Did you go up to Upper Peninsula or just the mainland? Okay.
No, we ended up headed up to the UP. That's where I hit most of the dirt roads, and we did some camping up there, and then came back down through Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Upper Peninsula. I haven't made it out there myself, but it's definitely on my list of places to visit.
Yeah.
It's
Take
like one
bug
of the
spray.
5 states I haven't visited yet.
Yeah, take mosquito repellent.
Oh, yeah. Well, I assume anything in North Country is frozen swamp and mosquitoes are rampant. So that's
So
good
yeah,
advice.
I got one of those thermocells for and I've heard good things about it.
Yeah.
But I thought that they would take the same gas canisters that I use for my stove, the green Coleman canisters.
Oh.
Well, it turns out they don't.
Yeah.
But you can also buy electric ones now too. So
Yeah, so I've got a couple of those between camping and hunting trips, and it uses the little butane canisters that just kind of
yeah.
I don't know if they screw in or snap in, but they're
They
little
screw in, I
specifically
think.
made for them. There's a couple other ones out there that like you can screw on a Jetboil type butane, isobutane canister.
Oh really?
You'll get a lot more burn time out of that. I think they're just as effective. Once those pads get smoked out, then they're no longer effective. You still have to replace them. But
You've had good luck with them though?
oh yeah,
Do they work as advertised?
yep, they definitely do. Especially, if you're going to put it inside a tent, it works great. If you're hanging it on a backpack and moving, not so much because that the vapor that comes off of it dissipates in the wind as you're moving pretty good. But
So you really want it on the person in front of you.
exactly. Oh, that's a good. But okay, so it feels like it's been a long time since we've recorded because I've also been on a short adventure, did a road trip out to Colorado to see some family, and also it was my high school reunion. I've never made an attempt to go to a high school reunion, but I didn't really have an excuse not to go this time, and I had tons of time off that I had to use. So we road tripped through Utah, and we stopped in at the Bryce Canyon National Park, Capitol Reef National Park, and then on our way back, we took the southern route through New Mexico, and we hit the Petrified National Forest, which
That's nice.
is not actually in New Mexico. It's just inside the Arizona border, but it was along that way. But that was really cool and very educational. The kids did the junior park ranger at all the places. Not at Capitol Reef. I will say Capitol Reef is less of an overlanding type destination or car camping destination. That's more of a backpacker's place. But Bryce Canyon is a beautiful spot. And they've got all I've learned they're called the hoodoos, which is that rock formation where everything kind of crumbles around. You get this column that sometimes looks rather phallic. But that is the rock formation called a hoodoo. I learned that. Also, I didn't realize how petrified trees were made. Yeah, so that was interesting to learn there in the petrified forest. And as we were on the trip, I mentioned, the bent trailer axle, the bent tongue. The biggest frustration that I had, though, was that the batteries were not charging in the trailer from the vehicle. And it's not for lack of connection because I've got 0 gauge wires running directly from the one battery into the trailer, and I've got a dual battery kit in there. But I've learned a lot since then, since I had to troubleshoot this. It was definitely connecting because I could hear let me back up. I have the T-Max dual battery kit. It's probably the cheapest dual battery setup that you can find, and it has a mechanical relay or the isolator. So when it senses the alternator putting out voltage, it clicks over and will send that charge to the battery. However, modern vehicles, what I've read is like 2006 or between 2006 and 2008, most vehicles have switched over to a smarter charging system where that alternator is only putting out enough charge to top off the main battery, and then it's not putting out the same voltage, which would be required to charge additional batteries like on the trailer. So those batteries weren't charging, which means it wasn't keeping my refrigerator running. And so I've started looking at maybe more intelligent battery isolators, but I don't think that was going to solve the problem because it's the voltage going in is the problem. And so what I've landed on is a DC to DC charger, and that basically bumps up whatever the input voltage is to whatever the batteries on the other side need, and it's got the intelligence in there, just like most battery chargers do, where it'll, put out a lot of voltage if the battery's super dead, but once it comes up to fully charged, it goes into a float mode and just kind of keeps it topped off. And there's tons of different ones out there, and I'm kind of interested in what other people are using. This may be a new topic for the podcast, but probably not to a bunch of other folks who are smarter on 12-volt electronics than I am. But the one that I'm looking at is made by C-Tech. I don't have the model number right off the top of my head, but it's already ready for solar charging. You just connect the solar panels to a different wire on the thing or a different connector, and it has the MPPT charge controller. So, a solar panel is going to put out different levels of different voltage based on the amount of sunshine that is hitting those solar cells. But that controller kind of mitigates those challenges and puts out a solid voltage to help charge up the batteries. So that C-Tech charger is going to be able to charge the batteries from a modern alternator on a vehicle like the 2017 Ram truck that went on this road trip. And it'll also work the same whether I connect it to my Jeep, which has a regular old dumb alternator that puts out the same voltage no matter what. And then it's also ready for solar. So I can connect a solar panel and keep those batteries topped up while the trailer is in storage or while we're out base camping in the same place for multiple days and keep the refrigerator nice and cool and the bottom section keep ice cream cold. So that was a major, major learning point for me. Have you guys experienced or heard about any of that with regards to the battery charging?
No, I haven't.
I've never heard anything like that. Now, did you run a wire? What did you do? Did you run a wire directly from the battery?
Yeah, so
to the back of your truck.
Yep.
A separate wire from the positive all the way back to the trailer.
Yep.
Of course, with a disconnect in there.
Yep.
Now, did you also run a negative back too?
Sure did. So there's 2 0-gauge wires running from the battery all the way back to the trailer. I've got a 200 amp fuse, just in case something goes super haywire, it'll pop that fuse on the positive wire right by the battery, and then another 200 amp fuse in the trailer right before the charger, or before the T-Max isolator, just as a double fail-safe. And then it's got an Anderson plug connector at the back that also connects to the trailer. So, it is fully capable. I've done all the math. Like, it should be sending full voltage all the way back. I'm not getting any loss or any significant loss going back. But when you look at the dash, with the Ram trucks, you can look at the voltage coming out. It's not super specific, but you can tell when it goes from 14 down to 13 volts coming out. So it's definitely changing, and that's where the problem is. If it's putting out just over 13 volts, I know where
the problem is.
It's not going to be charging.
And what you did is, because you ran a negative back straight off the battery, you should have just grounded it at the back of the trailer or back of the truck. You shouldn't have run the second line up there. There should only be one line, because then it'll register. This is a total guess. I'm guessing this. But what I'm saying is your battery is reading full between the two, between your gauge, but your other battery is not charged, so it's not drawing anything through the system because you have it hooked up directly to the battery. If you pull that negative off and ground it to the truck, I bet you it'll go through the system and it'll work just fine. I want you to try that for me.
That's definitely a cheaper solution.
Take the ground off the battery and ground it to the truck near the battery, but ground it to the truck frame, not straight to the battery. Because I'm thinking what's going on is the computer is not reading the computer sensor for the battery is not sensing a draw for those batteries to charge them up. Because you figure, like, if you plug in an inverter into the cigarette lighter, I bet you your amperage will stay up. If you unplug it, I bet you it'll go down. So that's something I'd like to know.
Well,
I'd like you
I'll give it a try. I know this new setup, the DC to DC charger, though. I think it's like $250. Well spent. And
I would do that. Yeah, I would still do that because you got the solar panels and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think because you hook the negative directly to the battery is just reading that battery. It's not reading the draw from the other batteries because it's not considered.
I'm not sure I'm buying it because it's the exact same setup on my Jeep where I've got the positive and the negative both coming off the battery, and it had no issues.
That's a different battery. That's a different setup. That's a different.
The only difference is the difference in the charging system. So
yeah, it's a dumb alternator. It's just going to just keep charging no matter what. Now the new ones, like you said, seem to have a smart chip in them where once the battery gets it. So if there's no draw on that battery, it's going to stop. And with it linked to the other batteries, I bet you there's some kind of sensor on that battery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the battery's not any smarter. It's all in the charging system. But from everybody that I've talked to in the research,
be a sensor on either side of that battery.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to keep researching it. But from everything that I've read and, if it's on YouTube, it's got to be true. So from everything that I've seen, like this is a problem ever since we've, all the manufacturers switched to the modern charging systems. Anyways, next, moving on. So a while back, I may have mentioned running some gravel roads in the Jeep, and I was getting some death wobble, and I've kind of narrowed it down to both a worn-out bushing in my track bar and the tie rod ends that need to be replaced. So the tie rod ends need to be replaced, and so I've looked at it, and it's a little bit more to go ahead and upgrade to 1-ton steering. And I've looked at the ones made by Ironman 4x4 Fab, which is different than Ironman 4x4 America. But I know Tony over at the Jeep Talk Show he's used some Ironman 4x4 Fab stuff in the past. So I called up Tony and tried to talk about, what his thoughts were, because he went with a different configuration when he upgraded his steering. Anyways, let's go ahead and play this conversation with Tony.
Okay, so I know my Jeep is due for new tie rods, or tie rod ends.
Right.
And I'm looking at just go ahead and upgrade to 1-ton steering. And you were saying that you weren't going to do that, you were doing something else. So why would I not want to upgrade to 1-ton steering?
Well, it's a personal decision. And that's what I was kind of indicating in chat was that I personally don't want that steering a boat feel. Like same thing whenever you take and I've never had 1-ton steering. I've just heard a lot of people talk about it on forums and stuff. And based on what they're saying and what Josh has said about, doing it on his, it's similar to having the sway bar off there. And except, instead of the roll, you're getting a dead spot, a large dead spot in the steering. So you got to turn the steering wheel a lot before it responds to what you're. And when I say a lot, we're all used to modern day. You move it a little bit and the steering changes.
You say we all, but that's probably not the case. I mean,
well, I would hope
there's
that
been so
Hummer
much-
would be that way.
oh yeah, drives just like a go-kart. Let me tell you.
Well, not with all the mass,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but still.
Yeah,
I would think it has
Well, so-
decent steering.
I would think that a fresh set of tie rods that are nice and tight would kind of reduce some of that steering slop. And I know I've been looking at the Ironman 4x4 fab with Andy there, because the kit that he puts together, he actually includes what I think it's called the Cure. Rough Stuff kind of developed it. It's that
Yeah.
hydrometer rubber thing that kind of replaces the boot where all the grease goes, and that takes all that flop and sloppiness out of the tie rod end.
For how long?
Well, for as long as that hydrometer rubber bushing is good, but when it goes bad, you can swap a new one on. I mean, I figure that's probably just
Yeah, I know.
the other maintenance.
I know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the idea behind it. So, the only weak part of my steering that I have right now is the drag link. And to be honest with you, Andy made it really clear whenever I was asked, because he had told me something while just chatting about maybe 5 years ago, that he was looking at taking the tie rod and drilling it out, making it solid, drilling it out for Dodge truck tie rod ends. Because they were much stronger. So when I finally got around to wanting to upgrade my tie rod, I said, "Hey, Andy, do you remember that thing we were talking about?" And he said, "Well," he goes, "I don't think he really did." He says, "I think he kind of did, because he wound up sending me everything I needed." But anyway, he said, "We're a custom shop. We'll make anything for you." So based on that conversation, I was thinking about, I'm going to have him make me a drag link. And I'll have to pick his brain, because I kind of like not to drill a hole in it for the steering dampener. But maybe I can get a kit that this clamps on. So I can
you
do
need to
away with
go
that.
back to the Ironman 4x4 Fab website, because he does sell that kit. It's like a
Oh,
solid
does he? Okay.
that's tapped all the way through, whereas some have those, like the threaded bungs that slide into the tie rod and then you weld in. His is a fully solid bar that's been threaded in, so you can screw in the tie rod ends as far as you need to, and then put the lock nut on, tighten it down to keep it in place. And he's got the ability to put that bracket on for the steering stabilizer and everything. So that is now a kit, and it turns out it's also the cheapest kit that I've been able to find. So he's got a couple options there. You can either get the tapered drill bit to tap the steering knuckles for the 1-ton tie rod ends, or you can get the tapered insert, so you can just drill it straight out, put that insert in, then you have the flexibility to do an over the knuckle or under the knuckle if you want.
Right. Well, but
It's got it all put together.
the kit the kit that you're talking about sounds like the 1-ton kit, but I'm not going that direction, because I got this chrome moly tie rod that he made for me that I just installed. So, like I said, my only weak point right now is going to be the stock drag link. So if I get him to make me a drag link, and I'm able to still get the steering stabilizer on there somehow, then for me, I think I'll have the best of all worlds, because I'll have this extremely strong steering setup and no tie rod roll.
Yeah, well, with the Cure being included as part of that kit, I wouldn't worry about the tie rod roll. Now the steering like a boat, that super heavy feeling, I hadn't really thought about that. But my steering stabilizer has been on my Jeep for 15 years, something like that, and it's been blown out for basically the entire. So it's just on there for looks, and it's not doing anything.
Yeah, I kind of thought about not even having one. I mean,
it doesn't. All it does is mask an issue if it already exists. But
I think it just makes you feel comfortable in driving it. I think it just makes it feel a little more stable.
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with control.
No, I agree. But when I went out the other weekend and we did some sections of the Mojave Road, we hit a couple potholes just right where I experienced a little bit of death wobble again.
Oh wow!
And I know it's not the track bar, and I've kind of narrowed it down to the tie rod ends being just worn out and loose. So they're due to be replaced. So if I went through and replaced both tie rod ends and the steering linkage, I'd be close to $200 anyways, I would imagine.
Right.
And if I'm going to spend $200, I can spend $250 and get the Ironman 4x4 fab kit with the cure and the tapered inserts for 1-ton steering. And then I've upgraded and replaced everything that I was going to replace anyways.
So you're talking about the 1-ton UTK, what is that? Under the knuckle steering kit?
Under the knuckle kit.
It's $199.50.
Correct. Then when you get the steering stabilizer kit and the threaded or the tapered inserts, I think maybe it's plus the shipping. Anyways, it brought it up to like $250.
Oh, I got you. I see what you're saying.
That's not bad at all. So I think that's a tremendous value for what it is. Well, you haven't convinced me that I should not go to 1-ton. I was hoping for,
like I said, it's a personal preference. I mean, it's all what you like. If you've done a lot more off-roading in your Jeep than I have, mine is primarily a daily driver. So if I was bending stuff left and right off-road, hell yeah, it'd be worth it. But
yeah. Well, my tie rod, the link. Let's see. I've replaced one of them. It's upgraded. It came with the Skyjacker lift kit, just to get it back to the correct length. But it's the tie rod ends that are the weak link, because they're still the OEM tie rod ends.
Yeah.
So I think it's time for them to be replaced with something heavier, something that's going to stand up to the abuse that I put it through.
Well, then that's one of the reasons why I went that direction with the Dodge truck tie rod ends, and Andy was nice enough to send me the tie rod ends and as well. So I didn't have to do nothing except just install it. So it was it's nice. It really is about the same size.
The same?
Huh?
Went into the knuckle the same? It's the same size?
Oh yeah. No, that was the beauty of this thing. They're much stronger tie rod ends, and they are actually physically smaller than the XJ tie rod end. So it's kind of counterintuitive. But yeah, they didn't have to do anything to the knuckle. Just put them in there and tighten it down. So it was a direct replacement. And he said, I said, it dawned on me. I was painting the thing, and I was able to run a wire all the way through it, so I could hang it up. And I said, I thought these things were supposed to be solid. He says, oh, I had some chrome moly laying around, so I made it out of that.
Oh, wow.
I said, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of working with a small-time custom fabrication shop versus, a parts mill that's cranking out stuff all the time. So,
yeah, so
supporting small businesses has its benefits.
I mean, I didn't think he was screwing me or anything. I just thought maybe somebody, because he's got people working for him now, so I thought maybe somebody around there had screwed up. And I just wanted to make sure that we were, on the same page, because I didn't want to be driving around with water pipe.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh yeah, Molly, you're okay."
All right. Well, maybe I'll have to give Andy a call myself and find out what he recommends, or maybe somebody else on one of the audience members in the 4x4 podcast and tell me why I should or should not go ahead and upgrade to the 1-ton.
So I am looking at upgrading the steering there, and since Tony was of no help at all, I'm interested what everybody else has in terms of recommending. I mean, the Jeep's going to be around for a while, so spending a little bit more to upgrade it, not going to be a big problem. And, just yesterday I mentioned here in our group chat that I also need to replace some motor mounts. So looking at the Brown Dog motor mounts, 20 years of off-roading, daily driving, rock crawling, and now running around in the desert, I think it's finally taking its toll. These things are dry rotted out. It's not to the point where it's super critical, but it is definitely high on the list of things to take care of, probably once I get back from my trip up to Alaska. So I think that's it for this show. We are running pretty long. This will probably be well over an hour-long show. Just want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks to you for staying subscribed to the 4x4 podcast, even though our release cycle is poo-poo. But you can support the 4x4 podcast by shopping over at Amazon for everything under the sun. If you go to the 4x4podcast.com/Amazon, we'll get a few cents from that purchase, and you'll still pay the same low price that you normally pay. We're just getting a small percentage to help keep things running over here at the podcast, which turns out is not an insignificant, as I just got the bill for the next 2 years of website hosting and all that stuff came due. My wife was not happy about that. So, and also just for supporting our sponsors like Artemis Overland Hardware. Head over to 4x4radio.com and you will find a huge playlist from all the other shows on the 4x4 Radio Network, which we are proud members of. You can hit play there and listen to the Center Steer podcast and learn about Land Rovers, or the Jeep Talk Show, learn about all things Jeep. We've got Cody and Matt on the Trail Chasers podcast. That is a show that should not be missed. And lastly, On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. If you want to contact us or send us some feedback regarding any of the things we've talked about here on this show, you can email us at the 4x4podcast@yahoo.com. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the 4x4 podcast. Oh, and Twitter as well. You can leave us a voicemail at 719-924-5337 or use the SpeakPipe tool located on our show notes for this one. And if you just want to share the podcast episode itself, just send a link to the file. That can be found at the 4x4podcast.com/147mp3. That is it. So tread lightly, God bless, and be safe out there while exploring your world.